folks, welcome back to Teaching Music to a Different Beat. It is interview season, which means that folks are going to be applying for jobs and you're going to be interviewing. And so this whole video here today is taking an idea of interviewing, but putting on what I call a DEIB twist. Folks, what I can say for certainty is that no matter where you interview and no matter what you are interviewing for in music and music education or the arts, that the topic of diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging, right, that is going to be on the brain of anybody who is interviewing you in your room. It has become, the cornerstone of mission statements in districts. It has become one of those strategic plans where we want to promote diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging. I have a couple of examples for you. Emails that I have gotten in the past, things that I get emailed about all the time actually, that really just reinforces this idea that DEI is on the brains of everybody who will be sitting in your interview. So here's one example. Hi, Erin. I will be searching for a new director of performing arts in my school district. The job will be posted in a couple of weeks. Could you please share this with any of your soon-to-be Longy grads or alums? Since DEIB is a huge part of our mission, we'd love to have another graduate from your program if possible. Thanks for sharing. That's just one example of an email that I get. Here's another example of emails that I get. One of my students who graduated from last year, she got a job. She got a job that she's wanted for quite a while, and it had opened up again, and she had applied, and last summer, I officially got the notice that she got the job. Hey, Erin, how are you? I just wanted to send a quick note to let you know that I got the job. Thanks so much for your help. The district offered me an expanded role with the stipend, to serve as the DEI coordinator and advisor for all of our arts teachers. I know that there is no way that I would have been able to feel as confident as I did during those interviews without our classes and the program, so thank you to you and to our wonderful faculty. I'm looking forward to our next Longy and Beyond meeting in a couple of weeks. I have lots of ideas already about what I want to do in this added role, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about them. And so this is just another example of how DEI is on the forefront of people's minds, and this is one teacher who wasn't even applying for this portion of a job, wasn't aware that this was something that the district was looking for, and it just kind of landed on her lap as a result of her feeling confident in this aspect during the interview process. And so these are just examples. These types of jobs, as they're opening up, they're going to be looking for certain types of people to fill these positions. So now I'm going to go into a document that I created. I hope that it's useful for you. This is not to tell you how to answer certain questions. This is how I would really want you to approach interviewing. So that way, when those questions do come, you feel really prepared. You've really thought well, reflected upon this beforehand. So these types of questions don't throw you. So let's go ahead and check that document out. Here we go. Okay, so here is what you're here for. Here is the document that I created that I hope is useful for all of you. Really just tables with guiding questions on ways that you can represent who you really are when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. One of the best tips I can give you in an interview that involves these types of questions is to really just be yourself, be authentic. When you're sharing information, make it come from you, because authenticity is super crucial. Nobody really is thinking that anybody has all of the knowledge, all of the experience. Nobody has this all kind of locked up. And so I want you to think about how to represent yourself truthfully, authentically, so that way folks can know who you are and you can be confident in who you are when you go into these interviews. So columns that I've created, questions to just kind of do a little bit of a deep dive for you to prepare for interviews where questions will be asked about DEIB. Some questions that I've come up with here are, what does DEIB mean to me personally and professionally? How has my understanding of this changed maybe throughout the years or evolved? How has it been challenged? And so initially in this document, what I would want you to do is I would want you to actually complete the answers to these questions up and down like this. So you're not going to complete it left to right. You're going to complete the answers top to bottom. And so what would your general reflection be first about this, right? For example, how have I been challenged? Well, I would say that I've always been challenged because I think that sometimes we don't have great models for this in our own experiences as students, right? Because we don't have great models. So that for me would be a really authentic answer for this. So I would want you to put in something that is true to you, okay? And then in this interview, if you have a story to demonstrate why you feel these things, by all means, cite a story. If you are a student teacher, cite an example of something that happened in class. If you've been teaching for years and years and years, maybe cite an example of where you started and where you've come along the years. So cite as many relevant examples as you can. Don't take too long in that, but if you have a story to pull from, you're going to do that. So you're going to write your story here, whatever story supports what you're saying, your story here that supports your answer for these types of questions. Have a pre-think about that. Not only do interviewers want to know what you're thinking and a story behind it, but they want to know what you learned during that experience. And so go ahead, put what you learned here. What will you do as a result of this experience from now on? For me, from now on, I will always check to make sure that students are represented in the best possible way, represented for who they are, and possibly what they need to really be who they are in this. I'm running out of space here, but to be who they are. Okay. I really want to honor student individuality. That for me is authentic. And then following up with that, where do you want to continue to grow? I always feel like DEI, there's always so much to grow in that. And so keep answering these questions and then go left to right. So I finished that general reflection. I might head on back up here. And then start answering these questions. What are my beliefs about it? Why do I believe this? Answer those questions again. Follow this template, follow this table. How do I create a learning climate that values student diversity and difference? What are my experiences with integrating it into the curriculum? What about my teaching practices? How do I use diversity, equity, and inclusion as a way to inform my choices when it comes to materials? What about assessment practices? All of that is really related to DEIB. And so just taking a little bit of time to prep yourself and figure out really how you feel about this and why you feel this way will make so much more of a true, authentic interview, and it won't shock you. When these types of questions come up, it will not shock you because you would have done the deep thought, the deep work prior to heading into an interview. So not only do I have this document here to fill out for yourself, and I recommend using this as much as possible because our answers might change the more we get into the field, the longer we're teaching, we have more experiences. But I also have a pretty comprehensive list of possible interview questions, things that you might be asked, questions that deal with that. And some of them are really heavy hitting and very pointing to DEIB, like the ones that are up here at the very beginning. Can you share your understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the context of education? How have you integrated diversity in your curriculum and your teaching practices? How do you ensure that all students, regardless of their backgrounds, feel included in your classroom? So these are heavy-hitting ones. How do you include English language learners or students with different cultural backgrounds? So those are the obvious ones. The obvious, like this question is about diversity equity, and inclusion. You might not get obvious questions. You might get things that are not so obvious, but yet they are still so related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Your responses will show a lot about who you are in that frame when you respond to these questions. So I'm gonna scroll down to those ones so you can just kind of see where that might start here. Here's a couple of examples. How do you get to know your students and their backgrounds? How do you ensure that all students feel included in your classroom? Even more so, scrolling down even more, I have, oh, this is a big one, and this one comes up in every single interview. Explain to me your teaching philosophy. Your philosophy has a lot to do with how you're going to manage a classroom, how you are going to work with students, how you're going to teach. What are your values? That's a big loaded question that you can really shine. You can really shine if you have a firm grip on that philosophy of how you feel about this thing. How do you manage classroom behavior? You know, classroom management is always a topic. It always comes up during interviews, and how you actually do that reflects who you are as someone who emphasizes diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is tethered to that. Same thing with assessment right here. How do you assess student learning? Same idea. Are you equitable in assessment or are you not equitable in assessment? And they didn't ask the question, tell me about equitable assessment practices, but your answer will reflect whether or not you are equitable or you are not equitable. So these are things to be thinking about. How are you collaborating with students and colleagues? How are you handling stressful situations in the classroom? These are all not necessarily heavy hitting, but they do point to who you are as a teacher. One of my favorite questions, and this is one that I actually ask all the time when I'm interviewing folks, is, if I can get to it, is this one down here. You really can't see it too well, but if I were to walk into your classroom, what would I see happening? What would be happening in the room? That to me also tells me what kind of educator you are when it comes to DEI and B. So these are examples of just some questions that you might want to prep for or things that are related, but I can tell you that these topics are not off limits. They will definitely be approached in some way or another in every single interview that is happening today in schools. It's really important to prep for that. I hope that this document is useful for you. One more thing, and that is to say that if you like this document, I do have a link in the comment section of this video where you can download it for free. Feel free to go ahead and access that and use it however many times you need in your own job search. I also have another free download as well on my website. If you like the content of this video and if you like anything at all about this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much, folks. I hope you're having a great day and good luck on your job search. Take care. Goodbye.